Most men are taught to listen to what a woman says. Fewer are trained to listen to what her body says, before, during, and even after the words. And yet, her body is the first to speak. It communicates her comfort, her trust, her interest, her uncertainty, a slight lean in, the subtle bite of her lower lip, the shift in her hips, the crossing of her arms. These aren't just random gestures. They are her subconscious communicating what she may not even be ready to admit to herself. And this is where the real psychological depth lies, in the body's truth, not just the mouth's narrative. We live in a world that prioritizes verbal communication, but the human brain evolved to process nonverbal cues long before language was ever invented. For women, this evolutionary skill is even more refined. Neurologically, women have a more developed mirror neuron system, the very network in the brain responsible for empathy and reading emotional cues. This gives women an intuitive grasp of body language. But the reverse isn't always true. Most men haven't been socialized to pick up on these cues, and even when they notice something, they may dismiss it as overthinking. But what if that subtle cue was actually the body's cry for connection, or its instinctive defense against perceived threat? A woman's body is not just a physical entity. It is a highly tuned emotional radar, constantly responding to its environment. When she feels emotionally safe, her body softens, literally. Her voice lowers, her shoulders drop, and her breathing becomes more rhythmic. When she feels threatened or disrespected, her body tenses, pulls back, closes in. These aren't reactions she chooses. They are instinctive, primal responses embedded deep in her nervous system. And here's where most men miss the mark. They hear the words "I'm fine," but they don't see the tight jaw, the forced smile, the avoidance of eye contact. The words lie, but the body never does. What's even more profound is how women's bodies will often reveal their truth even when their minds are confused. A woman might convince herself that she's okay in a relationship, that she's not hurt, that she doesn't care, but her body will say otherwise. It might manifest in fatigue, loss of appetite, or a mysterious lack of sexual desire. Her body starts to whisper what her mouth cannot say. And if that whisper goes unheard, it eventually screams. Men who are attuned to these subtle cues are not just better partners, they're more emotionally intelligent human beings. This is not about mind games or decoding tricks. It's about learning to observe with intention. Watch how she enters a room. Does she hold her gaze or quickly divert it? Does she lean into the conversation or pull away slightly when you speak? These are the moments where connection either deepens or quietly dies. And yet, these moments often go unnoticed. We scroll past each other, distracted and disconnected, wondering why intimacy feels so fragile, so fleeting. The psychology behind this is deeply rooted in survival. Historically, women developed sharper nonverbal communication skills because it increased their chances of safety and connection in communal settings. Her ability to intuit danger, read emotion, and navigate subtle social cues wasn't just useful, it was necessary. And even today, that survival software still runs in the background. So when a woman's body stiffens slightly during a conversation, or she instinctively steps back instead of leaning in, it might not be about you personally, but it is about how safe she feels in your presence. And that's the kind of information you can't fake, force, or manipulate. You have to earn it by being present enough to notice. Men often ask, what do women really want? But maybe the better question is, what is her body already telling me that I've been too distracted to see, because it's all there? In the tone of her laughter, in the timing of her touch, in the energy she brings, or the energy she withholds. A woman doesn't just communicate through words, she expresses herself through vibration, frequency, movement. To ignore this is to live in emotional illiteracy. But to learn her language, her real language, is to step into a deeper, more meaningful connection. And maybe that's the real lesson, that listening is not just done with the ears. It's done with the eyes, the intuition, the presence. Her body is not a puzzle to be solved, but a poem to be read slowly, carefully, with respect. And the man who learns to read that poem is already ahead of most. Sometimes the loudest truths are the ones her body whispers. Listen closely. One of the most overlooked truths about women is that their bodies don't just feel emotions, they store them. And not in some poetic, metaphorical way, but quite literally. Emotional experiences, whether joyful or traumatic, embed themselves into a woman's nervous system, her muscles, her hormonal pathways. It's not just her heart that remembers. It's her skin, her breath, her posture. And this changes everything we think we know about how women process emotional events. Phenomenon is known in psychological and somatic therapy circles as emotional memory. And it's far more prevalent in women. The female nervous system is uniquely responsive to emotional input, so much so that certain parts of the brain, like the hippocampus and amygdala, show increased activity in women during emotional recall. What does that mean in everyday terms? It means a woman's body is more likely to react to memories than her conscious mind might realize. She may flinch slightly when touched a certain way, or suddenly go quiet when a particular topic arises. These aren't random reactions. They are embodied echoes of emotional experience. And it's not always the big traumas that leave the deepest marks. Sometimes it's the accumulation of small emotional betrayals. The unkind comment, the dismissive tone, the broken promise. Her body tracks these things, even when her brain chooses to forgive or forget. A touch that once made her feel safe might now trigger discomfort. A certain scent or sound might cause unease, and she may not even know why. Her body remembers the moment safety was lost, even if her mind has buried the details. This is why physical intimacy can be complicated. Men often wonder why a woman seems distant, less responsive, or guarded, even when she says she wants closeness. The answer isn't always logical, it's emotional. And it lives in her body. If she's ever been touched in a way that made her feel objectified, unseen, or used, her body will instinctively guard itself, even if her words say yes. And this isn't resistance, it's self-protection. She is not shutting down, she is shielding. And the tragic part is, many men take this personally, when in fact, it's not about them at all. It's about unprocessed emotional memory locked in her physical being. But the beauty in this truth is that just as her body stores pain, it also stores healing. Safe touch, consistent kindness, emotional presence, these things slowly rewire her body's memory. Over time, her nervous system begins to relax. Her breath deepens. Her body starts to release what it has held for so long. It's not just about making her feel good, it's about making her feel safe enough to let go. And that's the gateway to real intimacy. The challenge is that men are rarely taught this. They are told to perform, to lead, to impress, but not to listen to a woman's body with humility and attentiveness. And yet this is where everything changes. When a man realizes that her silence might be her way of remembering something she can't articulate, or that her tension might be the residue of past harm, he starts interacting with her on a far deeper level. He becomes part of her healing, not another figure in her pain. There is also a philosophical truth here that's worth pausing on. As human beings, we are not just minds with bodies, we are bodies with memory, feeling, and intelligence. And women, due to their biology and social conditioning, often experience life through that lens far more intensely. So when we dismiss a woman's bodily reactions as dramatic, moody, or irrational, we aren't just being emotionally insensitive, we are being intellectually lazy. Because what we're witnessing is a highly complex emotional organism reacting in real time, carrying history in every breath, every gesture, every hesitation. To truly understand a woman is to realize that her past and present live simultaneously in her body. The way she moves, the way she holds space, the way she responds, it all comes from somewhere. And sometimes, the most compassionate thing a man can do is not to ask what's wrong with you, but rather, what happened to you? That question alone, unspoken but felt in his energy, can change everything. The body speaks long after the event is over. And the man who learns to listen to that language, not judge it, not rush it, but honor it, is the man who truly connects, not just to her body, but to her essence. Now, If I might be a little vague, which is assumed not to be a vague, then anything that might be the experience consoles us, not just to her body, but to her essence. If her body remembers pain, let your presence become part of what it remembers as healing. One of the most misunderstood forces shaping a woman's emotional and physical world is her hormonal rhythm. For many men, the word hormones is tossed around casually, used to justify a mood swing or dismissed as something irrational. But beneath the surface of that word lies a far more intricate, intelligent design. A woman's hormones don't just influence her fertility. They regulate her mood, her energy, her memory, her cravings, her need for connection, her sexual desire, even her level of empathy. What many don't realize is that her hormonal cycle isn't random chaos. It's a powerful internal compass, one that shifts her experience of life in subtle yet deeply psychological ways. Throughout the month, a woman's body undergoes hormonal fluctuations that alter her brain chemistry and emotional responsiveness. During the follicular phase, right after her period, estrogen begins to rise. She feels more confident, more energetic, more outward focused. Her thinking becomes sharper, her mood lighter. Many women report that during this phase, they feel more creative and socially open, like the world is full of possibility. But fast forward just a week or two, and the hormonal balance shifts. Progesterone increases, testosterone drops, and suddenly she feels more inward, more reflective, more sensitive to tone, to energy, to emotional nuances. These aren't just feelings, they're neurochemical realities. The emotional landscape of a woman isn't fixed. It moves like the tides, governed by a hormonal rhythm most men never even see. And because they don't see it, they misread her. They assume she's being inconsistent or difficult or confusing, but what they're actually witnessing is a woman responding to her body's internal signals. Signals that were never designed to be linear, but cyclical. And here's where the psychology becomes even deeper. During the luteal phase, just before her period, she's not just more emotionally sensitive. Her brain is actually wired to be more alert to conflict, more introspective, and more tuned in to what feels out of alignment. This is the phase where she might suddenly express frustration or seem more critical. And again, men might label this as overreacting, when in truth, this is when her body is primed to recognize what's no longer working. Her emotional filters become sharper, not because she's trying to start an argument, but because her hormonal lens is showing her what needs to be addressed. Now imagine being in a relationship with someone whose emotional frequency changes week by week and you don't even know it. That's what many men are doing, operating with zero awareness of this internal map. They keep asking, why is she different today? When the real question should be, where is she in her cycle? Because that cycle is the key to understanding her needs, her communication style, even the way she loves. There's a beautiful complexity in the fact that a woman's emotional truth is layered across time. At certain phases, she wants deep conversation. In others, she craves simplicity and solitude. Some weeks, she's more sexually open and physically expressive, while in others, she might want emotional closeness without touch. None of this is a contradiction. It's a rhythm. And when a man begins to attune himself to that rhythm, something changes. He stops taking her shifts personally. He stops labeling her feelings as erratic. He begins to see her not as a problem to fix, but as a cycle to understand. And that understanding opens the door to trust. Too often, men are given surface-level advice. Buy her flowers, say nice things, help with chores. And while those gestures matter, they mean very little if he doesn't understand the psychological state she's in when he's doing them. Because timing matters, emotional energy matters. What's nurturing in one week may feel overwhelming in the next. And this is not about walking on eggshells. It's about emotional intelligence. It's about reading the signals not just from her words, but from her energy, her behavior, her emotional availability. What's most ironic is that women often don't expect men to fully understand their hormonal rhythms. But what they do crave is the man who notices, who asks, who adapts, not because she demands it, but because he cares enough to be curious. The man who doesn't shame her for being too emotional, but instead learns to ask, "How are you feeling, really?" That man doesn't just support her body, he earns her trust. And the truth is, this level of awareness doesn't just help in romantic relationships. It changes how we show up as brothers, fathers, colleagues, friends. Because once you understand that a woman's body is constantly shifting based on her internal chemistry, you stop seeing those shifts as instability. You start seeing them as intelligence, nature's design, something to honor, not control. A woman's body is not broken. It is beautifully cyclical. The man wise enough to learn that rhythm doesn't just love her better, he understands her deeper. And in that understanding, he finds a version of connection most never reach. There's a powerful psychological reality that many men have never been taught to grasp. Women process pleasure and pain through deeply interconnected channels. For women, emotional and physical experiences aren't separate. They're integrated, woven together in ways that fundamentally shape how they respond to the world. When a woman feels pleasure, it isn't only about physical sensation. It's emotional, energetic, even spiritual. And when she experiences pain, especially emotional pain, it doesn't just linger in her heart. It imprints itself into her body, affecting her ability to receive, to trust, to feel safe again. This emotional, physical overlap is where many relationships break down, not from a lack of love, but from a lack of understanding. A woman's brain is biologically wired for connection. She has more mirror neurons than a man, which makes her incredibly sensitive to emotional states, her own and others. This is why during moments of intimacy, she often feels everything more deeply. If she senses emotional disconnection, even the most skilled touch will feel empty. Her body won't open up, no matter how much pleasure is on offer. Her nervous system is wired to prioritize emotional safety before physical enjoyment. That's not weakness, it's nature's design. She must feel secure to fully let go. If she doesn't, her body puts up invisible walls, walls that many men misinterpret as rejection. And here's where the psychological depth comes in. Pleasure for a woman isn't just about what's done to her body. It's about what her body believes in that moment. If her mind is flooded with doubt, her muscles will tense. If she's holding unresolved conflict, she'll withdraw, even while trying to stay present. If she feels unseen or unvalued, no level of physical stimulation will override that emotional block. In essence, her ability to feel pleasure is directly tied to her level of emotional trust. And that trust can't be faked, forced, or manufactured. It has to be earned, consistently, gently, over time. Now, the inverse is also true. Pain, especially emotional pain, can echo through her body in ways she can't always explain. This is why unresolved tension in a relationship often shows up first in physical intimacy. It's not that she's not in the mood, it's that her body has linked intimacy with discomfort or disconnection. And that link is powerful. Women often describe feeling numb or checked out during moments that should be enjoyable, and they blame themselves. But the truth is, her body is not malfunctioning. It's protecting her. It's remembering. And it's doing exactly what it was designed to do. Keep her safe from harm, even the kind that looks like love on the surface. This is why emotional foreplay is not just important, it's essential. It's not about saying the right words or lighting the candles. It's about creating a space where her body can relax, where her nervous system doesn't have to be on guard, where she's not just being touched, but being felt, seen, held emotionally, not just physically. That's where real pleasure begins for her, not at the surface of her skin, but at the depth of her soul. There is also a deeper philosophical truth here, that we are not just bodies engaging in acts, but beings exchanging energy. And the quality of that energy determines the depth of connection. The quality of that energy determines the depth of connection. You can't fake emotional safety. You can't touch a body into trust, but you can earn it through your presence, your patience, your emotional intelligence. So when a woman pulls away, don't just ask what she wants. Ask what she feels. When she seems disconnected, don't assume she's uninterested. Consider that her body is speaking a truth her words can't find. And when she opens up, truly, fully, don't take it lightly. So, because that's not just her body responding, that's her trust. True connection isn't built on physical technique. It's built on emotional presence. And if you master that, everything else follows.